Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I have with me Sarah and Deana. We are going to be talking about homeschooling multiple children. A little bit of advice for you today. Sarah is a homeschooling mom of 10, although they're not all homeschooling yet. And she is the mom behind the vlog, Our Tribe of Many, on YouTube. And Deana is a homeschooling mom of 4, and she is a blogger over at Sonlight. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their family. Sarah, why don't you give us a start?
Okay, well, like Stephanie said, we have 10 kids. Our oldest is 16 and homeschooler here. I think he'd be like around 11th grade. And then we have kids all in school down to kindergarten. So we have a 5 or 6 year old. And then we have children all the way down to our just turned 1-year-old Seth. So we have 5 boys and 5 girls. My husband is a pastor, and he's from Kenya. So we're an international family, and we've been using Sonlight almost all the way for our homeschool career, and we've only homeschooled. So
thank you, Sarah. And Deana, welcome.
Hello. I am married to Tim, and he is a children's pastor, actually. So I guess we've got a pastor's wife things going today. Yeah. We have 4 children. They range from 14 to 9. So our cluster is a little bit condensed there. But we've been homeschooling for almost 10 years now, and we've used Sonlight for 9. And I actually sent my oldest son to kindergarten because I am a former public school teacher and never considered anything different, ever. Never even dreamed of homeschooling. And in kindergarten, it seemed like I was just constantly pushing him out the door. And then we would come home and it was homework and dinner and back to bed. And then in the morning, it was back out the door. And so I told my husband, I said, this is not working for me. I was like, I don't ever get to see him, and we just need to pray about something different. And so we both prayed about it, and we felt like God was leading us to homeschool. And so we started right then and there. And that next year he was in 1st grade, and we've been homeschooling ever since.
Very good. Well, I know that you guys can offer so much advice about homeschooling multiple children, which is why I asked you to join me today. I want to know, and this is also a very funny question because I know for homeschool moms, there's nothing typical about a day, but what does a typical day look like for you?
Wow. Well, I can start, I guess. A typical day for me starts really early because I want to get a head start of my children. I think a lot of moms will understand what that's like. Doesn't always happen with little babies and pregnancies and things like that, but it sure helps. And then my kids work very independently. So a typical day for us is that they get up and we do breakfast and stuff, and then they start their work. So some of them they all have lists of what to go through every day. So some of them are motivated to get up early, maybe even when I get up, and start their list ahead. And so that they can have lots of time to play outside with their friends and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I have time in the morning where I meet with one child, a different child every day. And then I try to read all the like history and science type things in the morning before lunch. And then in the afternoon, I try to read all the read alouds out loud. And so that's kind of how I just block schedule my day. And then I have time that I work, and then goes on from there, dinner and bed. So that's just like in a nutshell of what my day looks like and how my kids kind of fit theirs into that. So
that's awesome. The block scheduling is kind of like what we do. We have always started the day all together on couches, and we start with the Bible because a long time ago, when we started homeschooling, we decided that the main thing that we wanted to teach was that, God sent Jesus to save the world. And so we decided if we did that every single day, everything else would fall into place and we wouldn't have to worry so much. And it's been true for the past almost 10 years. And so we always start with Bible all together. And then my kids, we kind of like to get our tougher subjects out of the way and then finish up with the fun stuff. So we kind of have a math block in the morning and a language block. And then we take a break. We come back and we do some read aloud and science. And then we take a lunch break. And then we come back and do history. And then the end of the day, everybody likes to finish by reading. And that's kind of the final part of the day. And then my older kids, now that they're junior high, high school, they are kind of getting to set their own schedule a little bit more. And so they are playing with what they like. My oldest son likes to start the day reading and then get into the hard stuff. So that's kind of fun to watch them get some independence and set their own schedule.
Very good. So you guys are both homeschooling multiple children at multiple ages. How is it? I know that you both have different ways of doing it. So let's get into those dirty details of how exactly you're doing it. Okay, so let's talk schedules a little bit. I know that Sarah's talked a little bit about how she structures her schedule. Do you guys, what kind of schedule works for multiple children, multiple ages, do you find?
Well, I really think that you have to schedule around your family's natural rhythms. And that changes every year for us. Every single year, we've had little tweaks to our schedule that, just, I don't know, it just happens through a family's seasons, I guess. But, and so as a homeschool family, I think you have to learn to be really flexible with your schedule. Like you can't just get cemented to it to the point where you can't change it. And then, I remember when my girls were really tiny, I would plan the read alouds that weren't necessarily age appropriate for them. Maybe they'd get bored with it, or maybe it was a little bit much for them. I would plan those during nap time. And so that was kind of our history time. And then I would plan math when they were occupied doing something else. It was just kind of like we planned the day around the little ones, the youngest ones at the beginning. And now I kind of find that we've almost flipped, because my older kids now have more extracurricular activities that we have to kind of adjust to. And so it's kind of funny that it has flip-flopped like that. But you have to just take your family's natural schedule and plan homeschool around that. I don't think you can really force a homeschool schedule, because I've tried it and it didn't work. So I'll just tell you now, it doesn't work. You have to kind of, know what your family needs first and then develop a schedule around that. So that's what I would say. And like I said, don't get stuck on it, because it will change. Maybe next year, maybe tomorrow, something will come up. And I've always wanted the kids to see life happening. That's one of the great things about homeschool is that you aren't, from 8 to 3:30, you aren't just in this, inside these four walls. And so if we needed to go do something, we would go do it. If we had a visitor come over, we would stop everything and visit, And so they've always kind of known that we have a flexible schedule.
I would say for us, some of the things you're saying resonate a lot with me, and then it's the same we do. But now with how many ages we have, we still playing around those nap times. I tell you, that doesn't stop around here. But also when they were all a little younger, I would do a lot, even while they're sitting down eating breakfast and then sitting down eating lunch. I felt like I had a lot of attention then. And so I would get a lot of subjects done just during breakfast before they even got up and going, because I would feel like, wow, we've already done math. That was the hardest thing, or we got that read aloud out of the way right away during breakfast. It was great. And some of those things, I also agree 100% with you. You just have to be so flexible. For me, and how our day is going and how much time it takes me to get through everybody's stuff, it is 4 days of, we try not to be too flexible. We try to get through it all, you know what I mean? And then have those 3 days where all of the other life happens. So I try to plan appointments away or like later in the day when I know I'm done, because if I have too many interruptions, it's just not going to happen. And we start falling behind very quickly. But we probably have a unique situation with so many ages and so many kids. But yeah, doing things at breakfast, being willing to change. I've changed the way I've done things like every year or every 2 years, or sometimes in January when I'm just sick of it all. If it's not working, there is always a solution. And I always feel like the Lord has something something different for me. If I'm coming up against a roadblock over and over, I just start praying about it. And because you can't always come up with the idea, and the Lord will give me an idea and it just makes such a difference. So, I encourage moms a lot. If it's not working, just ask the Lord what you could just do different. And sometimes it's a little tweak that makes all the difference in the world. Like, oh, I need to save that one thing for nap time, or I need to get that done before breakfast, or whatever. And I didn't know they could focus like that before breakfast, or, it can be one little thing that makes all the difference in a schedule and just being able to make it through it. But there's no sense in being tortured through the schedule. I think you can find something that works great for your family and that you're happy and excited to wake up and do every day. And that's always my goal. Like if I'm not happy and excited about what I'm doing, there might be something that needs to be tweaked here, but we can find that again. And it is possible. And it's somewhere out there.
That's really good. That's very good. And making sure that they are eating is very good. We actually introduced a mid-morning snack, which, let's just be honest, nobody actually needs. I mean, does anybody really need a snack between 8 and 12? No.
My toddlers do.
I mean, my kids say that they do. They will probably go to college expecting goldfish at 10:30. Yeah. But we always stop in mid-morning after we take a little break. We gather back and we do a read aloud, and they eat goldfish, seriously, because there's just something about keeping that mouth full that really helps the focus. You are so right.
Yeah. And then I also have always tried to put my youngest in early in the day. So teaching my youngest or spending time with my youngest, because I find that you always end up spending the time that you need with the older ones. Although now the high school ones are running here and there, that gets harder too. But I start with my kindergartner or my first grader, whoever's my youngest. And then also if I have toddlers that are just hard, sometimes little ones wake up on the wrong, we all wake up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes, but little ones, man, they're going to tell you about it. Yeah. And so sometimes I just take some time just sitting with them in the morning. Doing those little things with the little ones in the morning can make a huge difference in how your day goes too.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
I saw on Facebook, I think it was a Facebook post someone posted, if you could describe your homeschool in one word, what would it be? And the best comment was hungry.
I miss the days when it wasn't open floor plans and kitchens had doors you could shut. I want to close my kitchen. How do you do that?
Right? Kitchen close. Yeah. Also, there are tons and tons of different ways that you can schedule. You can learn how other people do it on the Sonlight blog and even on some Facebook groups. Sonlight has the the Sonlight Connections group. You can certainly join that, but any homeschooling group really can give you all different kinds of ideas. And maybe it's one, maybe you try 10 before you find it. Maybe you switch it up. It is all about being flexible. So you're both very right on that. And there's tons of people out there on advice on how to maybe change it up if you need to.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about organization. Sonlight has a lot of books. We're not the only homeschool curriculum that does that, I'm sure. But talk to me a little bit about how you organized your homeschool.
I'm going to let Sarah start on this one because this is not a strong point for me. Sorry, just not.
I can see you have books behind you.
Well, that's because this is our library room and it's probably the most important room in the whole place. So
yeah.
Yeah, but Sarah, go ahead and then I'll just kind of fill in.
Boy, we just separate them by cores. We have almost every core. So we just have them separated, but books wander sometimes. But thankfully my older ones, they always remember which core that book belongs in, because I don't. I should have done the sticker system way back in the beginning. Kind of wish I did. But yeah, we just keep them all out because kids like to go back to them. So even if we're not using a core, which is rare, we have it out. And I like them behind closed cupboards. I finally put them behind closed cupboards because we're not the neatest. Some of us are neater than others, but we're all sharing the same shelves. And we just kind of keep them in groupings of cores, and that's how we do it, I guess. Yeah.
I don't have any special anything for organization because I'm not great at it. I'm the person that sets the books, like this on top of the other books that are neatly stacked. And I don't know, but I would say that as far as organization goes, because homeschool parents have not just the school to organize, but their home as well. I have always kind of gone with you have your non-negotiable area of the house. And for me, the non-negotiable area is the kitchen. The kitchen has to stay clean and be clean every day, or I won't cook. I just won't do it. And so we kind of, as long as the kitchen stays clean and cleared off, then I'm good. Everywhere else in the house can be a mess and it's okay, but that kitchen has to be clean. And so anytime we use the kitchen for, homeschooling or books or anything, it just immediately gets cleared back off. And I don't keep clutter in the kitchen. The clutter goes to another room. And so that's kind of the way that I approach organization. It's kind of you have to think about what's most important and then let everything else go.
Organization ideas are everywhere, all over the blog, all over Facebook groups, all over everything. So if you need help in organization, definitely check those out. So we talked a little bit about it. Now that you guys have older children too, this changes quite a bit, but independent work. Where do you find that you are more involved on a day-to-day, and then where do you kind of let them be independent?
For me, it definitely obviously depends on the age of the child, but once they're strong readers, I've had actually a couple of kids that do much better reading. They're probably visual learners, much better reading the material themselves than me reading it to them. And so I would move them over to even reading their own history a lot sooner than others. And so I've kind of noticed that child by child, as I'm asking them questions as I'm reading to them, and I released stuff a little earlier, or I try to release a science, hey, why don't you read this, and realize that they're not getting much of it. And so take that right back. And my goal is always for them to be as independent as early as they can. I have a lot of kids, and I think it's also very good for them to be independent learners and learn by themselves. That's most of the reason I'm homeschooling. I want them to learn how to learn by themselves. So as soon as they can do that, I release them, but some kids have definitely been earlier than others. I also have done like I told you I do audiobooks and things like that help them be independent a little more, but I've also done like Story of the World. We did it on CD, is it? Or DVD? I can't remember. And it's awesome. They love it. And it's made them more independent in those 2 years that we do that. And they get so much more out of it probably because all the narrative voices and all that better than what I would do. So there's a lot, I do feel like there's a lot of resources too that can help that, in other words.
Yeah. I think that I'm a little bit opposite from Sarah on this. And one reason is because I just love it so much. Sonlight is exactly the way that I wish that I had learned growing up. And so the first 2 or 3 years that we used Sonlight, I felt like I learned so much. And so I think that I have a little bit of trouble letting go. I'm actually struggling a little bit with my high school kids this year because I'm having to let them go a little bit, and they're having to do, science and history by themselves. And I'm just not getting to do it with them as much as I once did. And so that's kind of been a learning curve for me. But I do want them to be independent on, on most subjects at some point. And so I think one of the mistakes that we make as homeschool parents a lot is trying to force independence too early, and not realizing that they have to learn to be independent first before we let them go. They have to know that you have to read the directions at the top of your math. You have to look at the samples and before you can do this. And then the other thing that I think is really important to help your child become independent is, even though they're learning independently, I think it's really important to give immediate feedback, because if a child goes through a whole page of math problems and completes them wrong, then for one thing, they're going to be really upset when you tell them that they have to redo the entire page. But for another thing, they have practiced that wrong habit over and over and over and over again. And so that has kind of cemented that incorrect process in their mind. And so I try to stay close to my independent learners. And I try to give them immediate feedback. Like, it happens, but I really try not to let things sit before they get feedback. So that's the goal, at least. It does happen some, but we try not to.
Today I let my son go with a whole math page, right? And I look over and I can't read it. I'm like, that is sloppy and unacceptable. It's like, but I can read it. It was just funny how I was, you've got to stop with this. Anyway. So I think that that's a really good explanation of how, both different ways of doing it. I'm trying to think of what we haven't talked about here. There was a lot that we covered in other questions. This is a good one that I'm sure people are interested. How long does it normally take per day to get through school?
Well, we do 4 days a week as well. I was so thrilled when Sonlight came out with the actual 4-day schedule, because for several years I had just been fitting 5 days into 4 days. And so when the 4-day came around, I was so excited because I just felt like we had so much more time. But we do 4 days, and we do 4 full days. We start at 8:00 and we go to about 3:30. Sometimes my big kids will go past that, but it's kind of like Sarah said, when we're done Thursday afternoon, we're done. I mean, we don't pick anything back up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's the great thing. And we don't carry things home. We don't carry things over into dinner, like once school is done, we're done, and no homework. If there is such a thing in homeschooling, I don't know if there is, but
yeah, for us, we actually do fit 5 days into 4. I don't know why we still do that. There's some good books in there I don't want to miss out on. Anyway, I'm a list checker, obviously. I like to get everything. That's why my kids are all in their own core, I think, which is my own issue. But yeah, it's an all day thing for me, especially. Now, my kids, because I have them very independent, they have all, like my older ones, I would say my 12-year-old or my 11-year-old and up, they go to the library, they get all these extra history books, they're doing all their extra whatever, they're learning all these things on their own. So they love to just do their own, get their school done with me so they can do their own thing, right? And their own learning, or go play with their friends. And then, so they are motivated to get a lot done earlier. But because I have so many things to do with so many kids, for me, it does take solidly often till 4, sometimes 5, sometimes in the evening, I'm still, hey, we haven't read together yet, let's go read. But that doesn't mean that my kids are working all day long. And so, and that's why it's also important for me to do only 4 days, because they're long 4 days, but
mom needs a break.
Yeah. And then we also homeschool year round, just so that we homeschool like 6 weeks on and then 2 weeks off, because it's intense, those 4 days for me. I think I do it more for me, but my kids love it too. So gives lots of people other learning opportunities, extracurricular.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, one last question. What is best practice that you found to make sure that each child gets individualized solo mom time? That's a very structured question for how do you get individualized time with your children?
I love the way that Sarah does it, where that is one of the benefits of everyone in their own core for sure, is, having that, this is just me and you history time. This is just me and you. And so I love that. Ours does not come like that. And so we kind of try, ours comes in errands. Anytime my husband or I go on an errand, we try to grab a kid to go with us. And that is kind of the alone time. We do tuck all of our kids in. I mean, 14 and down, they get tucked in. And so we try to do a little bit of alone time there and some talking, but it's hard. I mean, you would think that being home with your kids all day, you would get lots of that, but that's just not true. And, being a children's pastor's wife, and we have a homeschool co-op, and I feel like my kids share me a lot. And so that's something that is a constant struggle, but I'm usually pretty good at seeing when somebody needs a little more of me, and I'll try to be sure to grab them and, or make time to talk. So I don't know, it's nothing fancy or official, but that's kind of the way we do it.
Yeah, I love that. Mine is definitely when I sit down with them. I love it. We get into books together and we can't wait. Hey, it's our turn. Let's go. We try to leave everybody else, go out on the front porch or wherever we can escape. And I love it. It's my high schoolers. I have to be a little more creative now because I'm not reading books out loud to them. It was really sad. The last book you read out loud with them, it's kind of sad. And when they're right before high school, and it's a good book too. You're like, oh man. But you have to be a little more creative with that. We do errands and things like that, like you do too. So, but.
Well, very good. I appreciate you two so much sitting down and talking to me about advice on how to homeschool multiple ages, multiple children at multiple ages. That's better. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate you both. I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having.